Good evening and welcome one and all to another live stream. Hopefully you can all hear me. Hopefully the sound levels should be a little bit improved tonight. So let me know if you find that the sound is at the correct level, because I know some people have been saying that some of the previous streams were a little bit low on volume, but this should sort the issue out, hopefully. As I say, we did a members live stream yesterday, and apparently the sound was a lot better. So hopefully sound is good, says Lindsay H. Welcome to you. Sounds good, says Totem Crow. Superb. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. No technical difficulties. Excellent. That's great. Superb. Right. Okay. Right. A few shout outs before we start this evening. So again, with tonight's stream, we'll be taking a look at the official court transcripts of Lucy Letby's original trial, where we focus on one specific case and we look at both Lucy Letby's defence, where she was asked questions by her own barrister Benjamin Myers KC with her evidence in chief, and then we take a look at what Lucy Letby said under cross-examination by the prosecution. So we should get a good mix of both defence and prosecution. And on this occasion, we're up to Child O. First of all, thank you to Chrissy McCall, who has kindly gifted a crime scene to courtroom membership. Greatly appreciated. Louisa has also gifted one crime scene to courtroom membership. Thank you very much. And Valor Hawks with the $11.99. That is quite incredible and truly deserves one of my favourite sound effects, which I'll only play once this evening, so don't worry, but $11.99 is quite the amount.
Oh my God!
And does deserve one of those. Right. Thanks for that, Vela. Greatly appreciated. Right. Now, as I say, we will deal with Lucy Letby's evidence in chief first in a few moments' time. Before I get started, though, however, I'll just say hello to a few of you in the chat. Terence Stamper, welcome to you. Thank you for moderating this evening. Greatly appreciated. Lenny Russell, welcome to you. I know, I can't help it. I mean, some people have said, don't overuse that sound effect. Well, I've only played it once, all right? So just, just calm down. It's fine. It just makes me laugh. Look, you've got to have a little bit of enjoyment in these sad times. You've got to have a little bit of enjoyment where you can, or a little bit of, hilarity, whatever the word is. And when I'm interacting with a chat, and not discussing the case overall, then, we're going to talk as we do normally, I suppose. Jenny Pete Mills, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Vicky Maguire, welcome to you. JC, thank you for joining us. Susie M. DeRosie 1, welcome. Morella DeVille, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. M, thanks for being here. The legend that is John, he has joined us. Welcome. Totem Crow, thank you for joining us. Halo Jones. Who else we got here lurking in the shadows? Lucy Blue, welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Jill Pendleton, thank you very much for your attendance this evening as always. Ms. Blackwell, Louisa, welcome to you. Right, okay, Phil Rogers. And as I say, we're on to Child O now, so we're getting towards the end of the evidence in chief and looking at these cases separately. So after that, I guess we'll either do some narration of the Furwell documents possibly, or maybe we'll take a look at some of the other transcripts relating to Lucy Letby's original trial. Right, let's have a look here. It's Emma Rose. I was advised to change my name when I joined the Treehouse. Yes, that's the Discord. If anyone wants to join the Discord so you can keep in touch outside of stream hours, then feel free to ask for the Discord and Terence or Lenny will put it up in the chat box. Everyone is welcome, as always. Right, okay. Oh, the banner. Well done, Totem Crow. Totem Crow is on the ball. That's what we like to see. There we go. It's all prepared, just not on the screen. So there we go. Okay, so we've got about 54 pages to get through for Child O. 59 pages for Lucy Letby's evidence in chief, and then we've got my narration of Lucy Letby's cross-examination, again focusing on the same case. So let's have a little sip of the old juice and then let's start, shall we? Okay. Right, so let's put it on full screen. 2 seconds. Okay. Right, so this is Benjamin Myers' case seat, Lucy Letby's barrister, asking her questions during her evidence in chief. And he states the following, or says the following. I'm going to move on again. It seems abrupt dealing with it like this, not intended, but I'm going to move next to count 20, a count relating to child O, or child O, as he's also called, because obviously the names are redacted. We've got child O and child P on counts 20 and 21, but we'll look at what happened with child O first, and then look at matters relating to child P. I'm going to ask if we could start then, first of all, with tile 2 of child O, please. Can we have a look at what's behind that, please? So, child O, born on the 21st of June 2016 at 14:24 hours. Triplet, second of the triplets, 33 weeks and 2 days gestation. 2,020 grams, so a little over 2 kilograms in weight, born by caesarean. Just to remind you, Miss Letby, and the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we've got a sequence of babies we look at in this period, but as you probably recall, count 20 deals with child O and events on the 23rd of June 2016. Count 21 deals with child P and events on the 24th of June. And then you may recall, ladies and gentlemen, count 22 is concerned with child Q and events on the 25th of June. So there's a sequence that we're dealing with there. There's a sequence that we're dealing with there. If we just keep that in mind, because one matter runs into another to some extent, we'll look at the detail again, as we have been doing when we come to your evidence, Miss Letby. But can I just help us all by reminding you and the jury what count 20 is in its most basic elements? It relates to the 23rd. There are 3 particular timings that we looked at, though of course there's various events as we go along. So on the 23rd of June at 13:15, so just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was vomiting and abdominal distension that child O experienced. Then at 14:40, he underwent a profound desaturation and bradycardia, and was noted to be mottled and his abdomen red. And then at 15:51, he desaturated to the 30s with bradycardia and required CPR, and sadly died at 17:47. So we have a sequence of timings there, 13:15, 14:40 and 15:51. Again, I emphasise, just about read that word, there's other details in the evidence. I'm just trying to assist by picking out the key timings. You'll recall, Miss Letby, as the jury will, that on post-mortem, amongst other findings in the case of child O, there was identified a subcapsular hematoma, or hematomas on the liver, and we saw images of that, smaller ones in the case of child P, more marked in the case of child O. Again, to help us with our recollection, in the case of child N, we've had events that took us up to the 15th of June. Do you recall what was happening in your life between the end of those shifts on the 15th of June and when we come to this sequence of dates on the 23rd of June? Lucy replies, yes, I'd been away on holiday with Nurse E and another friend. Mr. Myers, right, let's have a look at the shift pattern if we could, which is at the relevant one we're looking at here now, thank you Mr. Murphy, is at page 33229. If we enlarge the upper part of that, do you remember we'd looked yesterday at the messages that refer to doing 6 long days in the course of 8 days? Lucy replies, yes. That was the 8th through to the 15th, is that correct? She replies, yes. Mr. Myers, and the 15th of June was where we started this morning with child N. So what was happening over the 16th through to the 22nd when we look at the grey patch on this? She replies, so I was abroad on holiday. The 23rd, is that the first day back? She replies, it is, yes. Can we put up the message please at tile 21, Mr. Murphy? We'll look at a number of messages. We've got a series of messages that we have exchanged before you start on the shift, Miss Letby. Tile 21, a message at 14:10 of the 22nd. So, is this the day you got back off holiday? She replies, yes. Is that the actual day you arrived back in the UK? Yes. And it's from Jennifer Jones Key to you. It says, the triplets have delivered. Nurse D texted as me to work tonight or Friday. When you back in? Can we go to the next tile, please? And you reply, yeah, I heard. Days tomorrow, Friday, Saturday. So when was it you knew you'd be working on those days, Miss Letby? Or do you know when it was you knew you'd be working on those days? She replies, no. All right, move on please to tile 23. Jennifer Jones Key saying to you after that, oh, hope you get some rest today. Tile 24, your reply to Jennifer Jones Key. Yep, probably be back in with a bang, lol. So we understand what you mean by that. What do you mean by back in with a bang, lol? She replies that I'd come back to work and be straight into a busy shift. Mr. Myers, does it indicate you were planning something dramatic and terrible when you got back? She replies, no. Tile 25, please. Jennifer Jones Key to you. Probably, lol. You'll be fine though. You don't mind being busy. I'm annoyed they're trying to get us in when trying to get rid of us. So I've said no. I'm annoyed they're trying to get us in when trying to get rid of us. So I've said no. And the next tile, please. Your response to Jennifer Jones Key. I do, lol. Yeah, can completely understand that. Plus unfair to keep asking when you're on annual leave. When you're saying, I do, lol, what are you saying you agree with? She replies, sorry, can I just see the one before? Mr. Myers, yes, can we pub tile 25, please? Lucy Letby, oh, enjoy being busy, yes. She said I cope okay with being busy. Mr. Myers, when you were asked to work shifts, how ready were you to go in and do extra shifts? She replies, I was very available. Why was that? She replies, because I had no other commitments outside work and I lived very close to the hospital. I was very amenable to changing and helping the unit when I could. Mr. Myers, thank you. Can we go next please to tile 39, still the same day but a little later on. We'll look at several tiles here. This is a message from Dr. A to you, 17:13 that day. How was the flight? Unpacked as well. It's the only way. Washing machine on. Day has been rubbish, emoji. Lots of unnecessary stress for NNU and too much work to fit into one day, emoji. I may have overfilled the unit again. SHO have all been fed. SHOs have all been fed and watered and the babies are generally okay, so maybe not as bad as I'm thinking. Your response at tile 40, glad it's over but flight was and airport was fine, thanks. On second load of washing, oh, that's not good. Back to earth with a bump for me tomorrow then. You seem to be quite good at acquiring babies to fill our empty cots. Good work, Dr. A. But I'm guessing you've not been fed and watered. And a response to that, please, from Dr. A to you. It's a skill I've had for years. To be fair, there wasn't a social admission. Yes, you might be a bit busy. Oh, you're right. I made sure they went first. Just realised when I last ate. Oops. Again, was there anything unusual about being busy like this on the unit? Lucy replies, no. When Jennifer Jones Key in the text earlier, the messages has said to you something about trying to get, I'm annoyed they're trying to get rid of us. Sorry, I'm annoyed they're trying to get us in when trying to get rid of us. What was she talking about? Lucy replies, there were conversations around that time about not having band 4s on the unit anymore, right? So there was a discussion about whether those band 4s would lose their jobs. Mr. Myers, that's what she's referring to. She replies, she is, yes. Did you appreciate what sort of day would be lying ahead of you before you went in for the shift on the 25th? She replies, yes. Mr. Myers, sorry, the 23rd. Let's have a look at the layout for that shift then, please, and we'll go to tile 106. We'll remind ourselves, the shift leader, Melanie Taylor. You are the designated nurse there, Miss Letby, for child O. Also on duty, Samantha O'Brien, Christopher Booth, Yvonne Griffiths, Yvonne Farmer, Rebecca Morgan. Do you remember who Rebecca Morgan was? She replies, yes, a student nurse. And Janet Cox. You'll find that at the front of the NNU, if that helps, NNU review. If we scroll down to see the actual layout, you tell us who you were looking after that day. She replies, I was in nursery 2 with child P and child O, and another baby, JD. You were allocated all 3. She replies, yes. And what level of care were these, the triplets, at this point? She replies, high dependency. Right, stop there for a second. Right, let's just catch up with the chat very briefly. Simone Bookbinder. You should have someone reading the role of Lucy's narrative. You do sound quite biased the way you are reading. Well, I'm reading both the same, aren't I? Because I have the same voice for both people. I'm not sure how many streams you've had where you've seen people narrating a transcript and they have an actor on a live stream for the other part. I don't recall seeing any myself, but I mean, you can read it in front of you, can't you? So, I mean, you can just put it on mute if you want and, you know, read it without any sort of inflection or whatever you want to call it. But there we go. I mean, I don't know how I could be biased. This is her defence. How could I be biased when it's her defence? There are some really bizarre people around, isn't there? Crazy, crazy comments. There really is some, yeah, it's a funny old world, isn't it? It's a funny old world. What can you say? Beautifully Fractured, a welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I mean, would you prefer it if I said it's something like this, Simone? If I said, is that outside the guidelines? Yes, it is. Why is it necessary to have the right number of nurses for the right number of babies? So that we can make sure we give each baby the care that they need. Would that be better? Because I'm not doing that for the next 2.5 hours, I can promise you that. Oh dear. The thing is, what it is, they realise that what they're listening to doesn't sound particularly good. So then they try and blame me for what their brain's telling them. That's what they do. They take their subconscious bias and then blame it on me for being the person that makes them feel that way. But I'm just reading a transcript. That's all I'm doing. If you find it makes her look guilty or innocent, that's not my fault. That's you reading what actually took place. That's you listening to what took place in court. You can make of it whatever you will, but don't blame me for what she said. I'm just reading what she said. That's literally all I'm doing. Oh dear. It is funny though, isn't it? It is hilarious. It's so funny. I mean, now I'm literally reading this as I would read a newspaper. So how could I be possible? It's like, so you're basically saying if I read anything, I'm being biased. Right, one nurse to 2 babies. So is this the correct? So me saying that's biased, is it? I mean, I'm just literally reading in my normal voice what she said. I can't help it that your brain is telling you something you don't want to hear. You know, that's not my problem. Just tune into one of those wacko channels or something. I don't know. Do something else with your time. It's just mad, isn't it? Right, let's have a look. Have you considered reading in a German accent? No, let's not go down the German route, Terry. We all know what happened for my GCSE German exam. We won't go into that. That's another story. Right, okay. Let's just catch up with the chat very briefly, and then we'll continue onwards. Oh dear. Let's have a look here. Who else we got here? Scarezilla, welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Much appreciated. Multi-Seti, thanks for joining us. Gainer, welcome to you. Right, okay. Right, let's have a look. Okay, so we're on page 10. Mr. Myers, what is the ratio meant to be for high dependency babies to nurses? Lucy replies in her biased tone, 1 nurse to 2 babies. So is this the correct? Lucy replies, the 3 babies here were high dependency. Is that the correct ratio? She replies, no. Is that outside the guidelines? She replies, yes. Why is it necessary to have the right number of nurses for the right number of babies? She replies, so that we can make sure we give each baby the care that they need. Mr. Myers, is nursery 1? There's 4 babies in there. Is that the intensive care nursery? Lucy replies, yes. What is the ratio of intensive care babies to nurses? She replies, 1:1. Is that being followed? No, and the nursery is also full. Mr. Myers, why do you make the point about the nursery being full? Why is that relevant? She replies, because it shows how much level of care was needed at that time. We had 4 babies, all in nursery 1, obviously needing intensive care. Mr. Myers, when you came onto the shift, do you recall who had been caring for Child O overnight? Lucy replies, no. I'm going to put up tile 89, please, so we can see the position from overnight. It's the bottom left-hand section. We can see here the 23rd of June 2016. First of all, a note at 0219 by SE. Who is SE? Lucy replies, Sophie Ellis. So Sophie Ellis, we can see in fact is caring for Child O overnight. She replies, yes. Would you have taken a handover from Sophie Ellis? Lucy replies, yes. Would she have spoken with you about how the night had been? Yes. Independently of this note, do you have any recollection of what you were told? She replies, no. Have a look at what the note said. We heard this in evidence, but as we go forwards, at 0219 she had put cares taken over. What does that say? Taken over nor night shift at 2000. Safety checks completed and fluid requirements calculated. Nursed in an incubator with Philips monitoring, including temperature reduced accordingly due to temperature of 37.3, to recheck hourly as appropriate. All other observations stable, pink, warm and well perfused. Then it gives the optoflow measurements and the saturations. No increased work of breathing. It sets out the details for the TPN and how that is arranged. Enteral feeds 2 times 12 via NGT. Increasing 2 mil to 2 to 4 hourly. 2 mil to 2 to 4 hourly. TPN reduced appropriately, tolerating feeds well. Part digested milk aspirates, under half of feed volume 4 hourly. Abdo full but soft. Has passed urine and passed meconium. Then moving towards the bottom, that you are involved, Miss Letby, we have an addendum at 0641 by Sophie. Is that supposed to be Sophie Ellis? For some reason they've put offence. I guess that's Sophie Ellis. TPN stopped has reached full feeds of DEBM, which we know is donor expressed breast milk, tolerating well. It has the details for feeds, antibiotics stopped as 2 times CRPs below 10 and blood cultures negative at 36 hours. Cannula removed. It sets out the blood gas. It then has lactate 2.3, Reg Mabry informed, weaned to 4 litres on Optiflow. Done at 0630. Pausing there, if lactate is 2.3, is that something that you might inform the doctor about? She replies, yes, it's outside of the normal parameters. Mr. Myers, and what does an increased lactate indicate, or possibly indicate? She replies, that there's an ongoing issue with a baby, it's a stress response. Mr. Myers, finally, an addendum at 0732. Abdo looks full, slightly loopy, appeared uncomfortable after feed, Reg Mabry reviewed. Abdo soft, does not appear in any discomfort on examination. Has had BO. To continue to feed, but to monitor. Is that detail you'd expect to have received when you come onto the shift? She replies, yes. Do you recall any particular issues with Child O at the start of the shift? She replies, no. We've seen on the layout, and we can take the note down please, Mr. Murphy, that included the staff for the day or the people on the unit. That included in the staff for the... Hang on a sec. That included in the staff for the day or the people on the unit is Rebecca Morgan. She replies, yes. Can you tell us who Rebecca Morgan was? I think he's already asked this, hasn't he? She replies, Rebecca Morgan was a student nurse that was doing a placement with us at the time, and it was her first day on the unit. Mr. Myers, when you began your evidence, I'd asked you about mentoring, and you told the jury about mentoring and student nurses. What was your role so far as Rebecca Morgan was concerned? She replies, I was her allocated mentor, which means that she would predominantly spend her placement working with myself, and I would be responsible for ensuring that she gets exposure to different skills and signing paperwork for the university. Mr. Myers, on a day like this, the 23rd of June, what would you expect to happen with her on the unit? Lucy replies, the usual process is that on their first day, they would be orientated to the unit by one of the management team, particularly Yvonne Farmer, who is the education specialist. On this day, that wasn't possible due to the workload, so that fell to me on that day. So, who would she be with? She replies, me. When you say whatever would normally happen with Yvonne, what would you have to do with her since Yvonne wasn't available? She replies, I had to take on that induction process and what did that involve? She replies, that's showing her around the unit, explaining fire procedures, just general orientation to the ward and what our daily routine is like on the unit and things. She replies, Mr. Myers, on top of looking after 3 high dependency babies in nursery too. Lucy replies, yes, and I also didn't know that I had a student until I came on that morning. You found out then? Lucy replies, yes. Then in terms of looking after the babies when you're dealing with them or observations, what's the situation with her and you? That's Rebecca Morgan and you. She replies, Rebecca at that point was at a point where she was able to conduct nasogastric tube feeds and observations indirectly supervised, but they also have to get a counter signature for anything that they've done with the baby, so I would be in close proximity most of the time, but not fully direct supervision. Mr. Myers, if we look at just a couple of messages in the sequence, first of all, TAR 110, this is a message from you to Nurse E at 8:15 that morning. You send a message to Nurse E. It's busy, but not vents anymore. I've got triplets in too, all okay, but got a student and first day. 2 hourly feeds, etc. No time to do anything, lol, and Yvonne F in, but said I can show her sound, that should be around, etc. And the response from Nurse E at 111, please, Mr. Murphy. What? That's ridiculous. When are you meant to get time to do a proper induction? Mr. Myers. Does that induction refer to what you were describing to us about the requirement to show a student nurse around? Lucy replies, yes. And then Mr. Justice Goss, the judge, may I just ask, vents? Lucy replies, ventilator, so no intubated patients, nobody on a ventilator. Mr. Justice Goss, no one on a, thank you. And then Mr. Myers, can we move down to the next tile, 116, please? Just before we look at that, where Nurse E had said, what, that's ridiculous, is that an opinion you would share as to the demands that were being put on you at that point? Lucy replies, yes. And I did raise it with Yvonne Farmer at that point. Mr. Myers. Tile 116, you send a message to Nurse E. No idea. She's nice enough, but a bit hard going to start from scratch with everything when got 3 babies. I don't know, and 2 hourly, etc. Ah well. Can we next look at the message at 9:40 at tile 130? It comes in a series of messages between you and Dr. A. This is, quote, my student is glued to me. What are you describing if we can't imagine it? But so we understand it, what do you mean by my student is glued to me when you sent that at 9:40? Lucy replies, it was her first day on the neonatal unit, and she was very much by my side as her mentor. She was very new to a neonatal unit. Mr. Myers, the prosecution alleged that you intended to kill child O. Is that something you are planning to do as this is taking place? Is this something you are planning as this is taking place? She replies, no. What were you intending to do that day, Miss Letby? She replies, to give the best care that I could for the babies and to also support the student nurse. Let's look at the early part of this shift from your note, which is at tile 109, please. This note has a number of entries. If we look at the bottom right hand of this page, we can see the note is made, if we just enlarge the lower part, the lower right hand corner, at 20:35 on the 23rd of June. So we'll see this is a note, this is completed. Is that at the end of the shift? She replies, yes. We'll come back to the way the note is dealt with a little later. Let's just read this. Written for care given from 0800 onwards. Emergency equipment checked, fluids calculated. Child O nursed in an incubator. Observations within normal range. Right, stop there for a second. So we're now 20 pages in. Right, 2 seconds. Okay. So we're 20 pages in at the moment. We've got another 39 to go, I believe, for the evidence in chief. And then we'll move over, as always, to the cross-examination. Can you do it in a Yorkshire accent, please? Are you talking to me or Lenny? Lenny's probably better to do that, as he lives up north, you know. I'm just a southerner. I'm just a common southerner. Oh, dear. Okay, right, let's continue. Mr. Myers. Let's just make sure I haven't muted myself. Nope, that's fine. Can we go over the page, please? Remained on Optiflow 4 litres in air. Nil increased work of breathing. 2 times feeds, 2 times 12 feeds, I should say. Donor EBM via NG tube. Minimal milk aspirates obtained. Abdomen appeared full but soft and non-distended. Smear of meconium present at anus. Active and alert, so that's we can see from what follows next. That's the position up to 13:15, which is the first part of the count. We're focusing at this point on child O. Who else are you looking after and being ready to write up notes on with regard to this morning and this day? She replies, the two other high dependency babies that were in the nursery allocated to me. We've seen from the charts there's a system of fluids that are recorded and given and observations taken on the hour. Is that something that had to be dealt with for all of them in the course of, she replies, it is, yes, of that day? Was Rebecca Morgan involved in that process? She replies, yes. Can we put up tile 88, please, which is the fluid balance chart? These charts are available in the paper bundle, members of the jury, but you don't need to go there unless you want to. They'll be on the screen. You have them in paper if you want to look at them or make any notes on them. We'll put it on the screen. If we pull back for a moment and see the entirety there, we know this is the chart for the 23rd of June. Can you see the entries where the initials for the shift we're dealing with begin, Miss Letby? She replies, yes, 0830. 0830. And if we look down in the 0830 column, whose initials appear there? Lucy replies, Rebecca Morgan. And what's recorded in that column? That is a nasogastric tube feed that's being given. Who is giving that feed? Lucy replies, Rebecca Morgan. Is that your handwriting there? No. So who completed this chart? Rebecca Morgan. And would you be with her during that? She replies, not necessarily, no. Would you be in the same nursery? Yes, and she would have to inform me that she was doing the feed. Then if we move forwards to 10:30, whose initials are there? She replies, Rebecca Morgan. Oh, initials, sorry, that's mine, sorry. Yours. Who's actually completed what we see above that? Lucy replies, Rebecca Morgan. Just in case anyone wonders, why do we have your initials if it's Rebecca Morgan who's dealt with this? She replies, it's standard practice. If you have a student, they have to have everything co-signed by a registered member of staff. When we come to 12:30, what's happened there? Lucy replies, it's the same again. Rebecca Morgan has given the feed and I have signed to say that she has done that. You signed. Who's actually filled in the entries for the feeds and aspirates? Lucy replies, Rebecca Morgan. We know we're heading towards an event at 13:15, but the 12:30 feed has been given by who? She replies, Rebecca Morgan. Can we also please have a look at the observation chart for the same period, which is at tile 18? Again, this is in paper if anyone wants to follow it in paper. It might be this one. It might be this is one where it's helpful to take the timings and just carry them down to above the handwritten entries at this stage, if that's possible. And then we can enlarge the chart so we can see what's being written at the bottom and up to the first yellow section. That starts at 8:30 on the 23rd of June. So we can carry those timings down if that's possible. If we look for the 8:30 column, who's completed that? She replies, Rebecca Morgan. Right. Did you write the RM or not? No, that's not my writing. Going up from there, who's filled in the various measurements, optiflow, humidity, probe, and so on? Lucy replies, Rebecca Morgan. If we carry up on the chart, would she therefore have also completed the marks we see recording temperature, respirations, and heart rate? Lucy replies, yes. And again, if we look across the top, let's just see. We've got 8:30, 10:30, 12:30. Who's completed those from what you can see there? That's not my writing, so I would assume it's Rebecca Morgan. Whilst we're up at this part, 13:30 and 14:30, that's my writing. And 14:30, is that your writing too? Lucy replies, yes. Can we go back down then to see who signed off at the bottom? I don't know if it's possible to carry the timings down so we have the timings on a bar so we can see it. Don't worry if it isn't, Mr. Murphy. We know the first one with Rebecca Morgan's signature is 8:30. The next to the right is Rebecca Morgan's signature at 10:30. So who's filled in what we have above Rebecca Morgan there? She replies, Rebecca Morgan. The 12:30 entry identifies Rebecca Morgan's handwriting. There's no initial for 12:30, is there? Lucy replies, no. Again, is that something that happens from time to time, that there is no initial? She replies, yes, it's just human error. Does it mean anything sinister has taken place? No. Or anything deliberately deceptive? No, the observations have all been carried out, so... Who's completed those observations on that occasion? She replies, from the writing, Rebecca Morgan. What about if we go right of there and we come to 13:30 and 14:30? She replies, so that is my writing. And your initials? Yes. So you've dealt with those observations. Lucy replies, yes, I've done those myself. Okay, thank you. We can take that down. Do you recall what happened round about 13:15? Excuse me. Without going to the note, do you have any independent recollection? She replies, yes, some. You describe it, Miss Letby, and then we can see if the note adds anything. She replies, I was outside nursery too, and I heard a monitor alarming. I went in and I found it was child O alarming and he was vomiting. Do you recall when you went in, whether there was anybody else in nursery too? She replies, I can't say from memory. Alright, can we have a look please at tile 109 again and look at what you put in for 13:15. It's on the left hand side, the second section down. If Mr. Murphy could enlarge that, I'm going to ask you to read it please, Miss Letby. She replies, reviewed by Dr. A at 13:15. Child O had vomited undigested milk, tachycardic and abdomen distended. NG tube placed on free drainage. Septic screen carried out. Blood gas poor as charted. 10 ml kg saline bolus given as prescribed along with antibiotics. Placed nil by mouth and abdominal x-ray performed. Observations returned to normal. We'll stop there at this point. Who had been responsible for feeding child O up to this point? Rebecca Morgan. The vomit that took place, we've heard described a number of different vomits in this case. Are you able to describe to us the extent, the scale of this vomit? She replies, it wasn't a significant vomit. When you say it isn't significant, what do you mean by that? She replies, so the amount that he had vomited was sort of standard for what we would see in babies that do vomit. Right. It wasn't a concerning vomit, she says. At this point, was there anything in his condition which suggested there had been a dramatic change in his health? She replies, no. Was he moved from nursery too? No. We've got the notes up, so could you read on please for what happens when we come to 14:40? Lucy replies, approximately 14:40, child O had a profound desaturation to 30s, followed by bradycardia, mottled ++ and abdomen red and distended. Transfer to nursery 1 and neopuff ventilation commenced. Perfusion poor. Intubated with drugs at 15:03 and placed on ventilator. Stable. Right, in fact, could you read on from what we have there, please? She replies, doctors crash called at 15:51 due to desaturation to 30s with bradycardia. 2 seconds. Right, let's try that again. Lucy replies, doctors crash called at 15:51 due to desaturation to 30s with bradycardia. Chest movement and air entry observed. Minimal improvement. Reintubated. CPR commenced 16:19 and medication fluids given as documented. Further venous access obtained ×2 peripheral. Pause there. How did you first find out what happened at 14:40? She replies, I heard the monitors alarming. Right, we can take this down for the time being so we can hear what you have to say about this. At 14:40 you hear the monitors alarming. She replies, a monitor was alarming. A monitor was alarming. Child O's monitor? She replies, when I went into the nursery I found it was Child O. Yes. What did you do? We've seen what the note has to say there, but do you recall what you did as so far as Child O was concerned? She replies, I called for Dr. A, who was in the nursery next door. By comparison with what had happened at 13:15, the vomit at 13:15, how did this compare? She replies, this was more significant because Child O needed intervention at this point. He needed assistance with the neopuff and he looked different. He looked unwell at this point. Mr. Myers, can you help us by what you mean? The description, he looked unwell. So the members of jury can follow? She replies, his colour changed. He was more mottled. His abdomen was a bit redder than it had been previously. He just generally didn't look as well as he had looked before. What do you understand mottling to be a sign of? She replies, mottling can be a sign of infection. A baby that's cold. Mottling is something we quite often see with babies. Mottling is something we see quite often with babies, Mr. Myers. All right, the charge relating to Child O is one of the charges where it's alleged that an air embolus is responsible for what took place. Yes. At least in part. I've asked you generally about that at the start of your evidence. I want to just look at some of the entries on the sequence of events and the neonatal review of what happened around 14:40. But let me start by asking, did you do anything which involved air being introduced into Child O? She replies, no. Or for that matter, any baby in this case? No. Would you? Never? No. Can we look in the neonatal review, page 4? It may be helpful to have the paper, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to take it to follow this. It'll be on the screen as well. This is CEH 22, events 21 and 22. I'm going to this because of how entries appear in the neonatal review and the allegation of air embolus. It will become apparent why. So if we're able to put on the screen, Mr. Murphy, we're going to page 4 of this neonatal review, CEH 22. From line 89 to the bottom, please. We can all see this. I'll just make sure we're all there. Page 4 of 14, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are. We can see the event marked at line 98. Can you see that, Miss Letby, at 14:40? She replies, yes. As matters are presented on the neonatal review, can you see line 92 and 93, what's recorded there? She replies, medication is being given by Melanie Taylor and Samantha O'Brien. Yes, that's 2 separate entries for 2 different e-prescriptions. Yes. We can also see at lines 95 and 96 it says, administration history update on computer. With the same nurses? Lucy replies, yes. So what will that relate to by reference? She replies, the 2 medications in the top 2 lines. So there's been 2 medications and then there's been updating on the system. Lucy replies, yes. How would a medication have been given? Lucy replies, intravenously. Right. Then as it's presented here, what's at line 97? She replies, a commencement of an infusion by myself and Samantha O'Brien. How will that infusion have been given? She replies, intravenously. What time do we have for that? 1440. Yes. And then we have recorded there an event, the collapse. Lucy replies, yes. Let's stop there for a second. Lenny Russell with the 10 gifted crime scene to courtroom memberships.
Oh my God!
That is quite incredible. Thank you very much, Lenny. I don't really know what to say. That's incredibly generous. Thank you so much for that. I don't know who exactly has got them. Maybe I can see on the screen here. Let's have a look when I go onto YouTube and have a look, see if it tells me. Does it actually say who received them or not? No, I can't see it on there. But yeah, if you did receive a crime scene to courtroom membership from Lenny, do let me know in the chat box. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Lenny. That's incredibly generous. And as I say, if people are new to the channel, we have one private members only stream per week. We had one yesterday where we took a look at the case of the missing twins in Scotland. We have one private members only stream per week, usually on the weekend, and that is one of the perks of becoming a member. If you wish to support the channel or become a member of Crime Scene to Courtroom to have access to those private streams, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. All help and support is always greatly appreciated. I can't believe that, Lenny. He's given out 10 more memberships. That is quite incredible. Marshall, welcome to you. You must have been around with the old Essex Boys stuff then, I'd imagine. I definitely need to do an Essex Boys live stream one night as well. I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. Potentially tomorrow, but I'll let you know. I shall let you know. Oh yeah, and don't forget to hit the like button. Something I always forget to say each and every stream. Right, who else have we got here? Mr. Bazda. Welcome to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Violet, welcome to you. Emma EFC, thank you for joining us. Right, and again, thanks so much for that, Lenny. You are a true legend of the channel. What can I say? What can I say? Right, okay, how many pages have we got left of this? We're on 35. At the moment, so we've got another 24 pages before the cross-examination. So give me a second and we shall resume. Laura Mack with the £4.99 super sticker. That is incredibly kind. Thank you so much for that, Alora. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. What did Marshall just say there? I like the reading of Darren the Snitch book. You mean Blogs 19? I guess you mean. But yeah. I mean, I think my first 60,000 subs were from literally just Essex Boys content. I think literally the first 60,000 subscribers on this channel are solely from Essex Boys content. It's only been in the last sort of couple of years or so that I actually branched out and looked at other cases, you know. So, but Essex Boys was definitely the original case on this channel for sure. And thank you so much for that, Alora. Much appreciated. Totem Crow, how do you put an accept on? Yeah, I don't know if Terence can help you with that. I don't actually know. Apparently you've got to change a setting on your YouTube account so that you can accept the gifts, I believe. Possibly. What would an X60 be from? Well, it all depends, doesn't it? It depends what happens in the world, I suppose, Mr. Terence. It all depends. I've got no idea where the next 60 are going to come from. No idea whatsoever. Lindsay H, we still love the Essex Boys content. I'm pretty sure, Lindsay, are you not the longest serving member of this channel? I'm pretty sure you are. I'm fairly sure that you've been a member of this channel for about 36 months. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. Right, here we go. Terence has just said, to accept a YouTube membership gift, you can follow these steps. Look for the gift icon in the live chat click. Chat click? In the live chat. He forgot a space there, didn't he? Look for the gift icon in the live chat. Click the icon and select Allow Gifts. You'll receive a notification in the live chat. So that's how you turn it on, basically. You need to turn it on before you can be granted a membership, basically, or you can accept one, I should say. Yeah, I think you're 29 months, aren't you, Lenny? And I think Lindsay H is the legend. Lindsay H is the true OG of the Crime Scene to Courtroom channel. I literally think she's been a member for about 36 months. And you're close behind with 29 from the best of my recollection. Right, anyway, let's catch on, or sort of carry on, I should say, with the transcript here. Right, 2 seconds. I'm just going to have a sip of my drink and then we'll continue. Okay, so Mr. Myers. So let's be clear. What's presented on the neonatal review here are 2 prescriptions, 2 medications delivered intravenously by Mel Taylor and Samantha O'Brien at 14:39. Lucy replies, yes. And as it appears here, an infusion by you and Samantha O'Brien at 14:40. Lucy replies, yes. Now, we're going to look at what lies behind this, but can you help us at all? When we look at tiles 97 with the infusion, is that in the right place as it appears before the event? As it appears before the event. She replies, no, I believe that was given as a response to the event. Right. So what would the correct order be from what you understand the position to be? She replies, it would be the black line and then afterwards would be the infusion. What about the prescriptions that were injected by Melanie Taylor and Samantha O'Brien at 14:39? She replies, I can't comment on those because I wasn't there. Right, well, I'm going to now just look at what we actually have on the documents themselves. So can we go to tile 191 first, please, Mr. Murphy? This deals with, what medication is that? She replies, a sodium chloride flush. Can we scroll down, please? Thank you. This is where we need to go. This is a medication at the first row. What time is this medication given or administered? She replies, the top of the page, the top page. He replies, yes, as we're looking at it now, the top row, 14:39. Who's delivered that at 14:39? She replies, Samantha O'Brien. I'm not sure who that user is. We know Melanie Taylor is down on the actual neonatal review as the other nurse, Emmy Tay. Nurse Emmy Tay, who is that likely to be? She replies, Nurse Taylor. That's administered at 14:39. Filed at 14:40. Lucy replies, yes. Can we look next, please, at tile 192, working forwards through the sequence of events now. If anyone does have the neonatal review there, you can follow the timings there too. We're going to see, this is for the 14:39. We're going to see, this is for 14:39, but what medication are we dealing with now? She replies, an antibiotic, cefotaxime. If we scroll down to the first or the box with the dose in it, how is that? Who's administered that and when? She replies, that was administered at 14:39 by Nurse O'Brien and Nurse Taylor. Mr. Myers. Right. In fact, both those medications are recorded as 14:39. Lucy replies, yes. Which way round would it be if you've got cefotaxime and sodium chloride? She replies, the sodium chloride would come after the cefotaxime. Mr. Myers, you described before how a line after antibiotics are used is flushed. Is that right? Is that correct? She replies, when any medication is given, it is always flushed afterwards, yes. So we have the 2 medications given at 14:39 by Mel Taylor and Samantha O'Brien. Lucy replies, yes. And the system updated at 14:40. Is that correct? Lucy replies, yes. Can we go next, please, as we're travelling through this, to tile 193. 14:39 is door swipe data. Maternity labour ward to neonatal inn. Where are you coming from or going to at that point? She replies, I'm entering the neonatal unit, having been on the labour ward. Mr. Myers, Do you know how long you've been on the labour ward for? She replies, no. This is you coming on at the same time as those medications are recorded as being given? Yes. Tile 198 please. This is the event we're looking at 1440. Can we next look at tile 199, a note by Dr. A? I want to read the opening part of this note. It's Dr. A written in retrospect. Called to see child O at around 1440. Desaturation, bradycardia and mottled. Bagged up and transferred to nursery 1. Lucy Letby. That's continued neopuff requirement. Continued neopuff requirements in 100% oxygen. It's got the heart rate and the oxygen levels, oxygen up to 100%, and Lucy jumps in with increased pressures. IV. Can you tell us what it says? What that is? She applies IV cefotaxime. IV cefotaxime 50 ml kg and 10 ml kilo 0.9% sodium chloride bolus. Mr. Myers, yes, then what? She replies, already given, yes. And what follows that? A further 10 ml. She replies, further 10 ml fluid bolus given. Given, right. So we have cefotaxime and sodium chloride already given and a further bolus given. She replies, yes. Then intubated following morphine. Yes. You said that what you did with Samantha O'Brien is a result of or after the event. She replies, yes. So we can move then next please to tile 200, the next in the sequence. If we look here, can you find for us the medication you were involved with when we consider what's on the sequence that we're dealing with? She replies, it's the second line down. Right, and what is that? She replies, it's a sodium chloride bolus. And why was that given? She replies, it's in response to a deterioration of 1440 around that time. Who's given it? She replies, myself and Samantha O'Brien. Where can we see that you've given that? She replies, in the given by column. And the timing for that? 1440. Right, does that form either of the two prescriptions given at 1439? She replies, no. Why was that given? In response to the event at 14, well, approximately 1440. Right. He'd become mottled, so standard treatment would be to give a bolus. Where had you actually been 1 minute before this collapse actually took place? She replies, I wasn't on the unit. Right, let's move on please. Child O had been moved to nursery 1, is that correct? After this point, yes. After this point. What happened when he went to nursery 1? Can you help us, please, Miss Letby? She replies, firstly, it took some organising. We had to move some babies out of nursery 1 to make room for child O. Once we got him to nursery 1, a decision was made to intubate him. Do you recall how events went from that point on? She replies, not in any clarity, no. Mr. Myers, I'm just going to show you an entry in the note of Dr. Breary and ask you to comment on this if you can. It's something that's observed. It's at tile 283, please, Mr. Murphy. It's a note written later that evening at 1800 by Stephen Breary. We saw this in evidence when he wrote it, that he was dealing with events sometime after 3 o'clock when Dr. A had been involved in intubating child O. I'm going to read the first paragraph. Written in retrospect. On unit and assisted with initial intubation by Dr. A this afternoon. Good capnograph colour change and bilateral air entry. Initially put on ventilator. It's got the rates and the details. Small discoloured query purpuric rash on right chest wall. Good perfusion. Then we can see after that it says called back to NNU to assist approximately 16:30, which helps place the timing there. You see what it says in Dr. Breary's note about small discoloured purpuric rash on right chest wall? Lucy replies, yes. And do you remember hearing about that in the evidence? Yes. Is that something you observed at any point? She replies, no, it isn't. Or is that something that was identified to you at any point? No. What discoloration, if any, had you seen on child O up to or at about this time? She replies, on his abdomen. We can take the note down, thank you. We're going to read through the rest of the note. the rest of your note and then deal with the questions that come in relation to that. So we'll go back to tile 109, please. We'd reached, when we were reading it earlier, the point that says CPR commenced 1619. Do you see that? Lucy replies, yes. Mr. Myers, which is where we got to at the end of where we've read on Dr. Breary's note when he returned. Do you have outside this note a clear recollection of what took place from there until the sad end of the events that afternoon? She replies, no, I remember certain aspects, but it all kind of merges together. There was a lot going on over the next few hours. Mr. Myers, do you recall the medication or medications being given to Child O? No, as in who gave them? The process of medication being given. She replies, I can't recall. Can you see in the note it says 1715 desaturation, CPR commenced? She replies, yes. We're stopping and starting, we know. Do you recall that happening? She replies, yes. Do you recall the CPR taking place? Yes. Can you help us with who was present round about this period? So it's clear, I don't want to seem imprecise. I realise I'm asking, this is inaudible, when I say this period. We've looked at a time at 1619, and now I'm looking at a time of 1715. Over that hour or so, do you recall who was present? She replies, yes, Nurse Taylor and Christopher Booth, and the doctors as well, Stephen Breary and Dr. A. Do you remember any other doctors present? She replies, not from my memory now, no. When you say not from my memory now, she replies, there may well have been, I can't recall anybody else specifically. We see the reference to CPR at 1715. Do you recall CPR taking place? Yes. Did you perform CPR? She replies, not from my memory, no. Do you know who did perform CPR from your memory? She replies, I believe it was rotated amongst several members of staff. Right. Do you recall how many times CPR, how many sessions, if I could put it that way, of CPR there were with Child O? She replies, I just know there was more than one. I can't specify how many. Right, I'll stop there for a second. I think I've got foxes outside, so if you hear any sort of weird barking noises, it's just foxes, all right? I can literally hear them, even with my headphones in. Oh, dear. So yeah, if you hear any sort of weird barking sounds or screaming sounds, it's literally just a fox, all right? Just to let you know. Oh, Lenny Russell. Let's have a look. Why is there foxes outside my front door at 9 o'clock, 1900 hours at 7 p.m. on a bloody Sunday? I can literally hear them screaming now. Let's have a look here, just make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't know. I know what you're saying, Mr. Stamper, but yeah, all I can hear is this. They make this horrible sound, don't they? This sort of horrible, screamy, barky sound. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue onwards. I think we've got about, let's have a look here, on page 48 of 59. So we've got 11 pages to go before the cross-examination. Oh, they do, Vicky. They do, because they know this is the day where the food bin gets put out. So that's when they all turn up. You see? It's all carefully crafted, carefully planned. You think they're stupid, but they're not. They're here on time every Sunday. Right, let's have a look. Okay, so Mr. Myers. To dispel any mystery, can we put up for a moment, please, tile 227? We can see here, this is the neonatal resuscitation record, and at the top line in it, for child O, chest compressions started. And we've got 2 times, which are what, Miss Letby? She replies 1619 and 1716. Mr. Myers, all right. And then Lucy Letby. So 2 episodes of 2 episodes. Can we take that down? Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Do you recall any particular procedures performed upon child O as time moved on? She replies, yes, I remember that we were struggling to get any intravenous access. So an intraosseous needle was used, which is quite a brutal thing to see. And we had to go and get that equipment from the children's ward. And I remember as well Dr. Brewery inserting a drain into the abdomen in view of it being so red and swollen. Right? And then Lucy Letby, I'd not seen that before. Whenabouts did that happen in the sequence of what was taking place? Do you recall? She replies, sort of during resuscitation. We know that efforts to resuscitate child O didn't succeed. No. What is, if it's possible to convey to us, the atmosphere like when that point is reached when people have been trying to save the life of a baby? It seems like such a ridiculous thing to question someone on. What is, if it's possible to convey to us, the atmosphere like when that point is reached when people have been trying to save the life of a baby? Lucy Letby, it's everyone is just completely flat. There's a complete change in atmosphere. How does it feel? To me personally, yes. It's devastating. You want to be able to save every baby in your care. That is not what's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to watch a baby die. Do you still have to provide support, so far as you're able, to the family in the immediate aftermath? She replies, yes, and to the other babies on the unit as well. Write the notes up? Yes. We see the notes are completed, or the time on them is 20:35. Lucy replies, yes. Where did you have the information to write those notes up? Because the notes cover the whole day. She replies, notes were made throughout the afternoon, either on my handover sheet or on a piece of paper towel or loose paper. That's how things are documented during busy situations. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I'd asked you about the CPR that happened. We know that after the post-mortem, or at the post-mortem, injury, hematoma, was identified on child O's liver. We've all seen that. Do you know how he came to receive that injury? She replies, no. I want to look with you briefly at something we have in a document introduced by the prosecution as part of the case called the post-indictment sequence, or schedule, and a sequence of tiles in that schedule, starting at tile 111. So I'm going to ask if we could go to that and put up tile treble 1. We start with a message on the 30th of June. So if we just take stock of the fact that we've moved forwards in time, it's a little bit before midnight, 23:51. 23:51, it's a message from Dr. A to you. Did Jay tell you what was wrong earlier? We're going to get more information as we go along, but who is Jay in this message? She replies, an SHO, Jessica Burke. Did you know that's who he was talking about at this time? She replies, yes. We'll get an idea of what's going on as we scroll on. Tile 114, please. Sorry, tile 112. Not really, you say. We started talking, but then people came into the nursery and she dashed off. Tile 113, please. Dr. A. I'm not sure where the information has come from. It seems that on the SHO grapevine, somebody at LWH... What do you understand to be LWH? Lucy replies, Liverpool Women's Hospital. Has said that one of the triplets was found to have a ruptured liver. Jay was upset that this may have been caused by her chest compressions. Next tile, please. Your response. Oh no, that's awful. Next tile, again from you. No wonder she's upset. Were you able to reassure her? When you say, no wonder she's upset, did you know that she had been upset? She replies, yes, she had been very upset with me on that day in the nursery. Can you tell us when you say that day? Are you talking about the day we're looking at here? She replies, yes, I had been at work in the daytime. What had happened? She replies, Jess and I were in the nursery at some point, and she was very upset about something she had heard about child O. She was very upset about something she had heard about child O. Go to the next tile, please. Did she say to you what it was she was upset? And then it says over speaking, that she had heard. She replies, no, we didn't get a chance to have that conversation at that point. We didn't get a chance to have a conversation at that point. Do you know any more detail than that? She was upset. Did you know any more detail than that? She was upset. She replies, no. Right, this is Dr. A to you, TOL 116. We spent 20 minutes in a cubicle going over everything. The CPR was all at the 5th rib space between the nipples. The duoderm, on initial of child P, was high. If there was anything, it would have been due to fluid volume causing liver distension. Pausing there. There's a reference here to initial of child P in that note. So far as Jess Burke and her distress were concerned, what did that relate to? She replies, child O. Can we go to TOL 117, Dr. A to you? I'm not sure I believe it. TOL 118. It was a coroner's PM. It usually takes weeks to get any report. Next TOL, please. It seems a bit like the rumour mill has gone into overdrive. This is you to Dr. A. The boys were only returned today. Can't see how info would be out that quick. TOL 120. No, me neither. Just to follow this to the end of this sequence, TOL 121. Not nice for Jay though. Can see how it would play on her mind. You say, TOL 123. This has come at the end of a 7-day run for her. Not a good time, says Dr. A. Sorry, not a good time, says Dr. A. 124. No, it's good she felt able to tell you, finally. 125. No, hang on a minute, I've done that wrong. No, it's good she was able to tell you. She felt able to tell you. Then finally, 125. I'm good for a hug and a chat. I think I helped. How upset, can you remember, had Dr. Burke been when she spoke to you? She replies, she was very upset. She was crying. Can we just look, please, on the sequence? And my lord, I know we've run past 11:30, but perhaps we could just finish this part and then we could take a break then. The judge then says, you decide the best moment, Mr. Myers. Is that all right, Miss Letby, that we continue what we're dealing with now? She replies, yes. I'm going to ask to look at TOL 330, if we could, please, on the actual sequence now, back to Child O's sequence. I said I'd just return to the question of the notes in a little more detail, please, Miss Letby. So this is you, and we're back now to the day we were dealing with, the 23rd of June. We've seen the time that you finished the notes, 20:53 or thereabouts, or started them in any event. At 21:09, we have a message from you to Dr. A. Just walking home. Parents very grateful for everything. Nice to have some fresh air. At TOL 330, please, Dr. A says, your notes must have taken a long time. Had you documented anything from this morning? TOL 331, your response to that? Lucy replies, only a little. Had the other two to write on as well, and sorting out the FFP, etc. Left signing for drugs until tomorrow. Right. You had started to tell us how you keep the information available for writing up the notes, as it happens for 3 sets of children. Lucy replies, yes. Let's go back over that. How do you know what happened when you come to write your notes up at the end of a shift? She replies, it's common practice that we will utilise the handover sheet. So we would write on the back of the handover sheet, and if something significant happens, we would just grab the nearest available paper or paper towel, something to write on, so that we can then document retrospectively. Excuse me. Mr. Myers, when in this note you finish left signing for drugs until tomorrow, can you explain to us what that refers to? She replies, so I hadn't completed all of the documentation for the medications, and I was back in work the next day. I planned to do it then. What was happening with whatever notes you'd had in between the end of your shift and completing writing up medications the next day? She replies, I needed it for the next day. So where was it? She replies, it came back. Where was it at this point? She replies, at this point, in my pocket. The notes that you had were in your pocket. She replies, yes. What were you going to do with those? She replies, I don't know what you mean, sorry. Mr. Myers, probably my fault. You've got the notes in your pocket. You've said something about left signing up drugs until tomorrow. You're talking about walking home. What's going to happen with those bits of paper? She replies, they're going to come back to work the next day. For you to do what? To carry on with the documentation of the drugs. Mr. Myers, that's what that relates to. Lucy replies, yes. Thank you. I wonder if we could take a break at this point. Mr. Justice Gosler Judge, yes, just 10 minutes or thereabouts. Thank you very much. Mr. Myers, before the jury leave, may I ask them to come in at midday? Blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Mr. Justice Goss, certainly, slightly longer, 11:48, short break. Right, so that's the end of the evidence in chief for Child O. Right, so let's just change this banner very quickly. There we go. And catch up with the chat. No, Dr. Burke won't be Dr. B. No. Anyone who's redacted is redacted on these transcripts. Anyone who has anonymity also has anonymity on these transcripts. So it's definitely not Dr. Burke, no. I can say that categorically. And also, yeah, we can't speculate either on who anyone is with an anonymity order. Yeah, just not something that we can do, I'm afraid. Because they're given anonymity for that very reason, as you can, I'm sure you understand. Right. Yeah, no, it's just, I don't even think it relates to their actual surname. It's just a random letter that they're given, basically. So, yeah. Right, okay. Or a random letter that they're assigned, I guess you could say. Right, okay, so let's now move on to the cross-examination, again on the same case, focusing on the same case, the single case of Child O. Now, let me know also when I play this if the video volume is the same as the audio now. Let me know if the volume levels are basically the same. Do let me know if the sound levels are fine, and I'll alter it as necessary. We're going to move on, please, to count 20, which concerns Child O. As before, I'd like to start with the contents of your defence statement. It reads as follows. I did nothing to hurt Child O. At paragraph 169, on the 23rd of June 2016, I was allocated Child O, Child P, and another baby called J. Rebecca Morgan, the student nurse who was with me, fed Child O at 8:30, 10:30 and 12:30. I signed the notes for this, but she fed him down the NG tube and did his observations. Shortly after the 12:30 feed, Child O vomited. He didn't look right, and his observations were yellow on the charts. At paragraph 171, it had not been a profound vomit. However, because Child O didn't look right, I got Dr. A to review him. This will have been around 1350, and nil by mouth was entered in the medical notes. At that point, there was a change in his appearance, but it was not dramatic. Child O remained in nursery 2. So far as what I've read to you there, is that what appears in the document? Yes. And is it correct? Yes. At paragraph 172, at 14:40, Child O's monitor went off. He was not breathing well, and his tummy was red and distended. I'd done nothing to cause this to happen. I called Dr. A from nursery 3, and he used the Neopuff. He checked the blood gas, which was not good, and so he moved Child O to nursery 1. Too many babies in there, and so we had to move some out. Again, is that what it says? Yes. And is it correct? Yes. At paragraph 173, when Child O collapsed, people were panicking. The unit was very busy. We had to move another baby to make space for Child O in nursery 1. Is that what it says? Yes. Is it correct? Yes. Paragraph 174. When Child O was put on the ventilator in nursery 1, he stabilised but then deteriorated rapidly. Again, is that what it says? Yes. At paragraph 175, I didn't notice a rash to the right side of Child O's chest. No one mentioned such a rash. His hands and feet were pale, and his stomach was red and purpuric and getting bigger all the time.
At one point, Dr. Breary put a needle into his stomach to see if anything could be drained. My recollection is that his stomach stayed red the whole time. I was present when we were resuscitating Child O, and it did not go. So again, is that what it says? Yes. And is it correct? Yes. At paragraph 176, Child O's abdomen was very swollen and the doctors were struggling to get access to a vein. One of Child O's lines had tissued and we were struggling to get lines into him. His peripheries turned white. He was so poorly it couldn't be done, and the only option was to inject his shin and put a line into his leg. Is that what it says? Yes. And is that correct? Yes. Are you there suggesting that intravenous access was lost? I'm saying that one of his lines are tissued. Yes, one of the lines. Are you saying that intravenous access was lost? I can't say. From that I've read one of Child O's lines had tissued. You know the significance of intravenous access in this case, don't you? No. Well, we'll come to it. Paragraph 177. Dr. B kept going outside to smoke during the collapse. I appreciate it may seem a small matter in all the circumstances, but she didn't wash her hands when she returned. Is that what it says? Yes. And is that true? Yes. Then finally, Sophie Ellis had raised a concern about Child O and the appearance of his abdomen during the night shift before my shift commenced. I do not accept that this was dealt with adequately at the time. Is that what it says? Yes. And is that true? Yes. And is that your position? That you do not accept it was dealt with adequately at the time? Yes. When did you come to that conclusion? By the time this statement had been written. What was it that caused you to reach that conclusion? Reviewing all of the medical records. So that is sometime at or before, I think it was the 11th of February that this document was signed off. 2022? Yes. All right. One thing I've overlooked is the question I ask you usually at the beginning of every day or every session. Namely, up to this point in your evidence, is there anything that you want to amend or change or put a different emphasis on? No. So taking yesterday as the most recent example, is there anything you said yesterday that you now wish to review? No. Anything you felt you couldn't answer yesterday, that having thought about it overnight, you now feel that perhaps you can answer? No. Have you given that some thought? Yes, I thought about it overnight. Yes. You have thought about what you said yesterday and whether or not in fact you made a mistake. Is that right? Yes. I want to deal with the background to Child O's death, please. We know from the evidence that we have heard that he was born on Tuesday the 21st of June at 1424. He died on Thursday the 23rd of June at 1747. All right? Yes. At the time of Child O's birth, you were abroad, weren't you? Yes. You were with Nurse E and others in Ibiza. Yes. You had gone there on the 20th of June and you returned on the 22nd. Yes. And you were very interested in the triplets even before you had seen them, weren't you? I received information about the triplets, yes. Would it be fair to say that they were big news in the unit? Yes, it was very unusual to have triplets on the unit, yes. Naturally conceived triplets. Had you ever in your experience come across naturally conceived triplets? No. If Mr. Murphy would help, please, and we start at tile 21. This is your friend Jennifer Jones-Key telling you about their arrival. Is that right? Yes. In the next text, you make it clear that, as a matter of fact, you already knew. Yes. Is that right? Yes. Then we have tile 24, where you say, probably be back in with a bang. Yes. Within 72 hours of that text, Child O and Child P were dead, and Child Q had collapsed. That's right, isn't it? Yes. And all happened when you were there? Yes. Yes. You then texted your friend Dr. A at tile 62, please. I say text, it's a Facebook message, still on the 22nd. where you were asking him for further detail about the triplets. Yes. Any reason why you were so interested? It was just general conversation. Triplets were unusual. Jennifer had obviously texted me to say they were born, as had Dr. A. It was just general conversation about something that's quite unusual. Did you want to get involved with them? No, I'm just making inquiries about something that's unusual on the unit that other members of staff are talking to me about. Do you accept the evidence of the boy's mother, the mother of child O, P and R? That all went well at their birth? Yes. Do you accept that overnight, the day they were born, the 21st into the 22nd, Amy Davies told us there were no concerns for either child O or child P? Yes. Do you accept the evidence of Samantha O'Brien from the day shift on June 22nd, so the day that you were sending the text that we've just looked at, when she said that child O in particular was fine on that day shift? Yes. And Yvonne Farmer, who said he was moved into nursery 2 because he was doing so well on that shift? Yes. Do you accept that overnight from the 22nd into the 23rd of June, both child O and child P were clinically well? Is that on the 22nd? This is the night shift before you came in on the 23rd. Yes. And do you accept that they were moved from CPAP to Optiflow on that night shift? I'd have to check. I can't recall that from memory. No. We'll come to the charts. Chris Booth told us that his impression was that child O would sail through. Until child O collapsed, did you see anything to undermine that as a reasonable impression? No, not up until that lunchtime. No. Sophie Ellis actually looked after child O in particular that night and said there was nothing concerning about his presentation. Do you accept that? Yes. If you go please to jury bundle 2, you will find the charts and other documentation for child O. If you look at the second page, which is J23657, there we have the observation chart for child O from about the time of his birth. Do you see that? Yes. And thus the clock went from the 21st to the 22nd, about halfway across the page where we get to midnight. Do you see that? Yes. It ran to 1300 hours on the 22nd at the far right of the page. Yes. Then turn over the page 23658. We have a chart starting at 1400 hours on the 22nd and moving through to the early hours and then ultimately the time of death of child O on June 23rd. Yes. In answer to questions asked by your counsel, I just want to confirm that you identified your handwriting on that chart. In particular, where we see what looks like 1330. Is that right? Yes. Is that a time that's been changed as a matter of interest? It looks like I've gone over it in some way, yes. It looks like there was a 4 there at some stage, doesn't it? I can't say for definite. Well, it's your writing. What does it look like to you? 1330. I would say it's gone from a 2 to a 3. Right. So no 4 under there. That's my opinion. It's a 2 to a 4. Anyway, we know that problems for child O started, give or take, at about lunchtime, at about 13:15. All right? Yes. We'll come to it in the sequence, but looking at the readings, the observations, is there anything concerning from your perspective on that chart prior to that time that I've just drawn your attention to? His temperature's a little bit unstable at times. Yes. Someone appears to have put a reading into the temperature chart at 12:30 and then crossed it out, don't they? And put a different one in? Yes. Was that you? No. How can you say? That's not how I document a temperature. That's not my writing. That dot is not your writing. I don't believe so, no, because I join up. I usually join up the arrows. Like you didn't do at 14:30 or 13:30. Because they're not a continuation. When there's 2 side by side, usually you would join them up, which is what's been done in the yellow bit. They actually join up. Child O, according to that chart, had been very stable overnight, hadn't he? He's had some temperature issues, but yes. If we can look at the bottom part of the page, please, Mr. Murphy. That's it, thank you. That left-hand column under where it says calling infant, do you see it? Yes. It says SATs and then fractional oxygen. Yes. Then what does it say? Optoflow. Yes. And this is the point I made to you earlier, that child O had been on Optoflow for quite some time, hadn't he? By the time... Yes, I couldn't recall that from my memory, so thank you for showing me. It's quite all right. It may be important, all right? Okay. His ECG leads had been removed, and that would be in keeping with this picture, wouldn't it? Yes, if that's what happened, yes. That was the evidence. Okay. His antibiotics had been stopped, and we know from tile 175, if Mr. Murphy would help please, that in a sample taken after his first collapse at 1339, after 5 days there was no bacterial infection. No. Then if we go please to tile 52, the aspirates in the output section under the NG asp vomit column show that child O was tolerating his feeds very well, don't they? Yes. Going back to your defence statement then, and what you wrote at paragraph 178, what are you saying is the point that you don't accept that the appearance of his abdomen overnight was dealt with adequately? I think concerns were raised about his abdomen and feeds were continued. But what was actually going on shows that there wasn't a problem, doesn't it? I don't know. Well, you do know. You're a Band 5 QIS qualified nurse. Where looking at the data is the problem? I can't say without looking. Well, you take your time and look, and you tell us where you are saying this problem was. He's still having milky aspirates. You give us the page that you're looking at, please. 23676. So if we carry on in the documents to the final document behind divider 20, what's the problem? There's not a problem, it's just that he is still having aspirates and he hasn't had his bowels open. Doesn't it say bowels opened, for example, at 5 o'clock, and he passed urine as well? I think that's a BNO. BNO? Yes. Well, you see, this is one of the reasons I went to your defence statement first, because you raise an issue, and I'll just remind you of what you said at paragraph 178. Sophie Ellis raised a concern about child O and the appearance of his abdomen during the night shift. I do not accept this was dealt with adequately. What is the inadequacy? I don't know. You don't know? No. So you are suggesting that there was a problem, but you are not in a position to tell us what the problem was. Is that what it comes to? Yes. And there's no apparent problem recorded in the paperwork, is that right? Yes, not on the charts, no. Do you accept Dr. Maybury's account of examining child O at the end of the night shift, and that all was well? Is this the night when he reviewed him but didn't write the notes? So, yes, on his word, yes. Well, are you suggesting we shouldn't accept his word if he didn't write it down himself? No, I'm saying there's no way of definitively knowing if he reviewed him or not. Well, Sophie Ellis wrote down that he had because, as you remember, I'm sure, he had been called away and didn't have time to make the note himself. Yes. So when you say there's no way of definitively knowing if he didn't examine him, would it follow you're suggesting there must have been some sort of cover-up between Dr. Maybury and Sophie Ellis? No, I'm saying there was no formal note, so therefore I was not there. I cannot say definitively what happened. Right, well, do you accept the nursing note that he did it? Yes. Right. Do you accept that Dr. Maybury essentially excluded the presence of the subcapsular hematomas in child O's liver at the time of that examination? Yes. If we could go please to Sophie Ellis' note at tile 105. So, abdo looks full, slightly loopy, appeared uncomfortable after feed. Registrar Maybury reviewed. Abdo soft, does not appear in any discomfort on examination. Has had bowels open. So there's a note made by your colleague that his bowels had opened. Do you agree? Yes. To continue feed, but to monitor. Is that note, in effect, the foundation for your assertion in your defence statement that there was some sort of inadequate treatment? I think I've stated, because the doctor didn't actually write anything down, I don't know that he was fully reviewed. Right. So because Dr. Maybury personally didn't make a note, you do not accept that any issues there may have been with child O was adequately dealt with at the time. Yes. So it comes down to the personalisation of the note. That's the basis for your concern. Yes, because it's been pointed out where something's not written down, you don't know that it happened. And who's pointed that out? Sorry? You say it's been pointed out? By who? You. Me? When's that? Well, people have stated that if something's not written down or somebody writes something, it might not be correct. If I can help, it was the suggestion made in the case of Dr. Beeb's afternoon review of child I, when in the nursing note it was pointed out that Miss Letby had said there was a review at about 1500, and the prosecution pointed out that there was no note, and that's what she is referring to, that it's been pointed out before. Is that what you meant to say? Yes, so therefore it didn't happen, yes. I'm very grateful to Mr. Myers. Do you accept that at 9:30 Dr. Cook examined child O and actually felt the liver area and excluded there being an injury at that point? Yes. So does it therefore follow that the liver injury child O did sustain happened in effect on your watch? Yes. Yes. Do you accept therefore that somebody must have inflicted that liver injury on child O during that day shift? I agree that it's happened during that shift. I don't know how it's happened. Well, we've heard expert evidence from Dr. Marnaridis about how these things happen, haven't we? Yes. Yes. Your case is you don't know how it's happened, and I assume you will say that you deny that it happened at your hand. That's right. Well, let's go to the population distribution, please, at tile 106. There we see that you were the only nurse in nursery 2. Is that right? Yes. With child P, child O, and a child JD. Yes. The third triplet, child R, was in nursery 1 with child Q, BM, and YM. And the nurses in there were Samantha O'Brien and Christopher Booth. Is that right? Yes. 3 children in nursery 3, ZZ, MB, and FG with Mel Taylor and nurse C. Yes. Then another couple in nursery 4 with nurse C. Is that right? Yes. So it follows that you were the only nurse in nursery 2 on this shift. Yes. Are you suggesting that the staffing levels caused or contributed to child O's collapse or death? No. Are you suggesting that any doctor's mistake caused or contributed to his collapse or death? No. Are you suggesting that any nursing mistake caused or contributed to child O's collapse or death? No. You, of course, were supervising, was it Rebecca Morgan? Yes, the student on this shift. But she wasn't always in the nursery with you, was she? No. She was off doing other things with other people and having a chat to some of the mums. Yes. We can see you telling your friend Dr. A about that at tile 149 at 10:20 that morning, can't we? Yes. Is the fact that you had 3 children in nursery 2 a reflection of the fact that they were all doing very well? Yes, it would suggest that they're not all high dependency. Was child O high dependency? I don't believe so. No. It's just in your evidence on May 17th, you suggested that he was. Well, I'm not sure about clarifying with the guidelines. I can't remember. Or was it that on the 17th, you were trying to create the impression that things were rather more fraught and difficult than really they were? No, I can't recall now what access he had and what would make him an ITU or non-ITU. Do you agree that high dependency babies should never be left unattended? No, they are left unattended, but somebody would be aware that you're leaving the room, yes. So somebody would keep an eye out. If you're going to be away for a period of time, yes. And what do you mean by a period of time? So if I was leaving the nursery to say, leave the unit, then I'd get somebody to listen out. If I was going to get medicines from another nursery, then I wouldn't necessarily do that because I would still be able to hear the monitors. Okay. I want to start with tile 121, please. These are Dr. Cook's notes of an examination that she undertook of child O at 09:30. Yes. Dr. Cook told us that the designated nurse, which we know was you, told her that there were no concerns for child O. Do you accept that? Yes. She told us that reported to her were trace of aspirates but none bilious. Do you accept that? That I told her that? Yes. I don't recall saying that, but there's no bile on this chart. No. Well, you were either completing the chart or supervising the student completing the chart, weren't you? At this point, there is only one feed, but yes. Dr. Cook said there was absolutely nothing abnormal with child O at this stage of the morning. Do you accept that? Yes. And she positively excluded the possibility of there having been an abdominal issue at that point. Do you accept that? Yes. Did you leave the unit shortly after this? I've left the unit at points, yes. I think I went to go and get some donor milk out of the freezer. Where is the freezer? It's on the corridor outside of the neonatal unit doors. I'm just interested in a sequence of text messages that you then started to send to your friend Dr. A. All right? Can we start at tile 123 on the basis that you're the only nurse in nursery 2, and if you're going off the unit, you get someone to listen out. You say boo at 123. Was that trying to get his attention? I think it's in response to a previous text where he said he's not on the unit, I think. Yes, you're quite right. He texted me first, and I think this is my response to him not being on the neonatal unit that day. He was in the clinic, I think it's tile 119. Were you disappointed that he wasn't there in the unit? Yes, I enjoyed working with Dr. A, yes. Did you want to get his attention? No. Is that the reason you sabotaged child O? No. If we go to 124 next, please, Mr. Murphy. In answer to boo, he says, I thought something similar. Then 3 minutes later, 125, you sent another message, then added a correction to that at 126. At 127, are you here this afternoon? And he replied, yes, back after the clinic. So at that stage, you knew he would be back in the afternoon, didn't you? Yes. You then said, have fun, 1:30, my student is glued to me. He commiserated, saying, could be a challenge. Then, this is what my morning is looking like. I say my, because of the next text. You responded, how exciting. He said, no, it's a load of. And you said, now, Dr. A. Then at 9:45, bit rubbish that you couldn't stay on NNU. Were you missing him? No, this was my first day back at work. At 9:47, tile 138, it's okay, Tony would have had the whole day of clinic otherwise. Clearly, fridge sales must be low. And then you sent 2 further messages about the Eskimos at 139, and then whether or not he would get lunch. And your text continued at tile 142, 09:55. You said you'd lost your handover sheet and found it in the donor milk fridge. He replied, and you continued texting him on and off between 1000 hours and 10:39. Was that a busy morning for you? Sorry? Was that a busy morning? It was a fairly busy shift, yes. Not exceptionally busy. Given that you don't text in the clinical areas, you have told us, where do you get the time from to be sending all these texts? A lot of the staff are often on their phones. No, I'm not asking about when you're not doing something directly with the baby. I could be on my phone. In the clinical area, I wouldn't be at the cot side, no, but I might be on the unit using my phone, yes. I wouldn't have used a phone in the clinical area. A non-clinical area would be somewhere like the nurse's station, the equipment room, the break room, the corridor, anywhere that's not the cot side. At tile 158, please, 10:36, Dr. A was offering to get you lunch and saying he thought clinic should be done in an hour. So in other words, by about 11:35. Is that right? Yes. And when he arrived, we know he came to see one of the babies, child Q. Yes. So that shows, doesn't it, that Dr. A was on the neonatal unit at 12:10. Yes. At 12:30, you fed child O, didn't you? Could I just see the chart, please? It's tile 167, please, Mr. Murphy. That shows you feeding child O, doesn't it? No, that's not my writing. I signed the bottom, but the actual feed content is not my writing. Whose initials are at the bottom? Mine. Yes. So you fed child O? No, it's not. No. That's not my writing. That's Rebecca's writing. And as her mentor, I have to countersign that she's done anything. Yes. But she should sign it as well, shouldn't she? If she did it. Or if I've done it first, she wouldn't need to. No. If what, sorry? If I've signed as well, then she doesn't need to, necessarily. No. Why is that? Because if she's fed back to me that she's fed the baby, I would take her word for that and document it myself, the initials. There were no problems at that feed, according to the data that's recorded on the form, were there? No. Trace aspirate? Mm-hmm. And your initials? Yes. And it was about this time that you deliberately overfed child O, wasn't it? No, I did not overfeed child O, and I did not feed him this feed. Do you remember that it was around this time that Mel Taylor was in nursery 2? Yes. If we look at line 57 of the neonatal review, we can see that at 1300 hours she made an entry of having fed the child JD. Yes. And JD was one of your children in nursery 2, wasn't he? Yes. So Mel was in there, in nursery 2, in the aftermath of your record that you had fed child O. Is that right? Yes. So Mel was with the baby JD at 1 o'clock. Yes. The point is, she's in nursery 2. Is that right? Yes. And you know the significance of Mel being in nursery 2 at that time, don't you? Because she said she made a comment about child O not looking well. Yes. She said to you that child O didn't look well. What else did she suggest? From her recollection, that we should move him into nursery 1. Yes. And you refused. Insistently, didn't you? I don't recall the details of the conversation, no. Well, do you recall a different conversation? I don't recall any specific details about talking about going into nursery 1. I know that nursery 1 was very full. I don't remember being very dismissive to Mel about where child O needed to be. She told the jury that you were undermining her authority. That's Mel's opinion, if that's what happened. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that from what we saw yesterday with child N, you weren't getting on with Mel at this point, were you? Yes, I got on well with all my colleagues professionally. FFS, do you remember that? Yes? Yes. You were angry with Mel, you accepted that? Yes. Was it your place to refuse if a senior colleague made a suggestion? No, I don't recall doing that, but if I had, Mel would have been perfectly within her rights to override me and take the baby off me. But she didn't. No. You had sabotaged child O, hadn't you? No. And that's why you didn't want him moving outside your control into nursery 1. No. Because as we can see from the population distribution, if a child went from 2 to 1, it would necessarily involve a child coming out of nursery 1 and in all likelihood being swapped into nursery 2. Yes, keeping you in nursery 2. I can't answer that. That would be up to how the shift leader would have allocated. Well, it would, but 2 of your charges remained in nursery 2. Yes. This would have meant child O escaping your influence, wouldn't it? No, I disagree. I can't say how the allocation would have worked had child O moved. We've looked just now, and it may be that the jury still have open chart 23676 behind divider 20. So that's an examination by Dr. A in the aftermath of what I'm going to suggest was a collapse for child O at 13:15. Okay. You'd have been giving this information to your friend Dr. A, wouldn't you? Yes, most likely. He gives the amount of milk that child O was receiving, a vomit post-feed, no bleed, small meconium plug, heart rate 160 to 170, etc., doesn't it? Yes. 160 to 170 isn't tachycardic, is it? It's higher than we would want it. Well, it's the higher end of normal. Yes. Well, if we go into the paper bundle 23656, we see that the yellow area starts at 180, doesn't it? Yes. If we look at your nursing note at tile 169, we see that you were recording at this examination that child O was tachycardic. That wasn't an accurate reflection. Yes. Is that an accurate reflection in reality? Yes, he's had an increasing heart rate over the period of time, and when I've got him reviewed, it suddenly spiked up further, so... He was not tachycardic, was he? I think he was, in my nursing opinion. All right. In your nursing opinion? Yes, I see. Do you remember saying on the 17th of May that this was not a concerning vomit? It was a standard baby vomit? Yes. Do you remember the lying false entry you made in a different chart at about this time? No. Let's look at tile 170, please. It's J23667. Right at the back, one from the back of the paper documents behind divider 20. You see there you're writing at 1320? Yes. What's the false entry in that line? I don't know. You don't know? Do you remember Dr. Bowen telling us about it? No. CPAP? Yes. Do you remember now? I think he had some CPAP pressure at that point, did he not? No. He'd not been on CPAP for hours and hours. You were covering for air you'd given him, weren't you? No. Let's look at tile 197. This is an X-ray that was taken at about the time of child O's second collapse at about 1440. Okay? Okay. Do you remember Professor Arthur's looking at this and telling us about it? Yes, I know he looked at it, yes. Yes. And he said that the level of gas in the bowel was more than would be expected in a normal baby. He gave two possibilities as being the reason. One was NEC, and the other was air down the nasogastric tube. Do you remember that? Yes. That's the reason you wrote CPAP in the gas chart, isn't it? So that anyone looking back might think, well, if he was on CPAP, that might account for why he's got gas in his bowel. No. Well, why did you write CPAP in the gas chart? I can't answer that now. I don't know. Were you upset that he wasn't on CPAP? He wasn't on the full CPAP machine. I can't say whether he was having CPAP via the neopath. I don't know. That's a medical decision, isn't it? Yes. It's not for a nurse to put a child on CPAP. No. No. Going back to the observation chart, which is 23658. No mention of CPAP there, is there? No. Optoflow, as we saw before. Yes. Yes. Did you forget to make a false entry in that chart as well? No. Do you agree that Dr. A left the neonatal unit after the review of child O? If that's what he says, yes. I don't have any recollection. Is this the first collapse or the second? That's the first collapse at about 13:15. I know he was back on the unit by the time of the second event. And we can also see, if we look at the neonatal review document at line 91, you were making nursing notes in the case of JD at 14:30. Yes. And it was shortly after that, and shortly after the departure of Dr. A, that child O collapsed again, didn't he? Yes. At 14:40. Yes. Can you remember what you told the jury about this collapse when you were answering questions from your own counsel? Not in great detail, no. Well, I'll remind you. You said that you heard the monitor alarming. When you went into the nursery, you found it was child O, and you called for Dr. A, who was in a nursery next door. Yes. So he'd come back by this stage, had he? Yes, I recall that Dr. A was on the unit at the time, yes. I think you then suggested that you weren't on the unit at all, by reference to tile 193, if you remember that. If we look at tile 193, this is door swipe data. It shows you going from the labour ward into the neonatal unit. Right. I think you told us yesterday that there's a doorway there. I think this is when you came in and saw child N on the 3rd of June at 7:12. Do you remember? We had the same sort of data. Yes, I've entered the unit via the maternity ward. Yes. So where were you at around this time? I can't say definitively, but I've come through the labour ward. Had you just nipped out to make it look like you weren't actually around when child O collapsed? No. One of the things that we see in the X-ray report that I showed you before, it's tile 197 please, Mr. Murphy, is that the NG tube was in a satisfactory position. Do you see that? Yes. At tile 199 we have Dr. A's note, just to remind you of what he said. He refers to being called to see child O at about 14:40. Was it you that called him? From my memory, yes. Were you trying to get his attention? Yes, I wanted him to review child O, yes. But his personal attention as well for you? No, Dr. A was on the unit that day. If we look at tile 200, please, what we see there is some of your handwriting. Is that right? In the second column, yes. Yes. So it's the second row, is that right? Yes. 23rd of June, saline 0.8, 20 ml bolus intravenous. Prescribed by Dr. Cook much earlier that morning, wasn't it? At about 9:30. I'm not sure what time she prescribed that. But not given until this time. Any reason for that? How do you know it was prescribed earlier? I think Dr. Bone referred to it. Well, I can't answer that. There's no way looking at that sheet to say when it was prescribed. It may be that I've introduced a level of confusion about something which I want to resolve, if we possibly can, all right? We need to look at several documents, please. The first is tile 200, the one we were looking at before. If we just look at this, please. Do you remember me showing you this before? Yes. So in the second row of data, you have co-signed with somebody else. Is it Samantha O'Brien? Yes. For giving a saline bolus, we can see of 20 ml. The time you've put, that's your writing in the time and date, isn't it? Yes. The time you've put in there is 14:40. I suggested it was prescribed by Dr. Cook because we see Dr. Cook's signature in the column immediately to the left of your signature. Yes. I think where I fell into error was attributing that event, the prescription that is, to the 9:30 examination. Whereas in fact, if we go to Dr. A's note, which we looked at earlier at tile 168, we see just above where it says observations, Plan 1, Gas 2 if temperature instability, apnea, bradycardia, PO-PR aspirated, blood, abdominal X-ray, IV fluids, 10 ml kg bolus, and then abdominal X-ray. Yes. Is that right? Yes. So 10 ml per kilo, we know that when he was born, child O was 2.02 kilos. So even my maths can work out that's a 20 ml bolus. Yes. So it appears that it was Dr. A that in effect made the order, but Dr. Cook who wrote the script. Yes. Would that fit? Yes. Would you agree that the reason as you understood it as the designated nurse for the order from Dr. A was because this was a child that needed a bolus of saline because he had just vomited? I don't think the saline was in response to the vomit. I think it was his poor blood gas. All right. Whatever the reason, there was a fairly important need for it. Yes. So the question, please, is why you delayed giving the bolus for such a long time? He needed to have access obtained. He didn't have a peripheral line, I don't believe, at this point. Right. Well, who put the peripheral line in? I think Dr. A did. Is that the reference in the text? Yes. I see. And so it follows, you'd been on a break when he was doing that. Is that what you're saying? You left the child? Potentially. I don't know that I was definitely on a break, but I was not with child O because Dr. A was texting me. Potentially is a word you use rather a lot. Because I can't say 100% I was on my break at that point. There's no way of ever being able to know what time somebody's break was definitively. No. But if a child had desaturated significantly, sufficiently to require the attendance of Dr. A, who you appear to have been looking forward to seeing, would you have chosen that moment, as he was treating and putting a line into the child, to go on your break? Yes, breaks are allocated by the shift leader, so would have been guided by them. Anyway, the fact is that you gave the bolus to child O just before he collapsed, didn't you? No, I believe that the bolus was given as a result of the collapse. Well, we may never get to the bottom of this, but if we go to tile 199, it was something that Dr. A was asked about. It says, plus 10 mil kg, 0.9 sodium chloride bolus already given. Yes. You're saying that's a different bolus? I'm saying the bolus that I've documented is the 1440. That's the only bolus that I've written anything against. Yes, but I'm asking about the coincidence between the second collapse of child O and you belatedly, for the reasons you have described, administering this bolus of sodium chloride. Again, I don't know what time that was prescribed, whether it was for the previous sodium chloride bolus, or whether it was for the 10% that needs to be given now at 1440. Well, who of the nursing staff has principal responsibility for child O at this stage? Me. And this second desaturation was very significant, wasn't it? Yes, more so than the first one, yes. Profound. Would you agree? Yes. That was the word you used at tile 201. Go there, please. You record profound desaturation to 30s followed by bradycardia and mottled ++. Abdomen red and distended. Transfer to nursery 1 and neopuff ventilation commenced. Perfusion poor. This was a life-threatening event, wasn't it? That level of desaturation. Yes. Before the events that the jury have been hearing about during the course of this trial, which event started at the beginning of June 2015, had you seen lots of desaturations like these? Yes, frequently babies desaturate, yes. But to this level? Yes, they can do. I know they can do. I'm asking you whether it happens very often. Yes. Do you remember what you said about the mottling, as you have described it, or mottled as you've described it in that nursing note? What you said about that in interview? No. I'll just remind you. It's the second interview bundle, please, and it's the first of the child O interviews. You say, so I remember it well. He was mottled all over, and he had a red abdomen. So the mottling is a sort of blotchy purpley red rash and a red abdomen as well. Is that how you remember it? Yes. Had you seen that sort of mottling before? Yes, mottling is common. This isn't normal mottling, is it? The redness to his abdomen was abnormal, yes. The mottling is abnormal as well, isn't it, that you're describing there? No, I would say that's my description of mottling. So serious was this event that child O had to be intubated, didn't he? Do you remember? Yes. And that happened at 15:03 that day. Do you remember what Dr. Breary saw when this was going on? The intubation? Yes. No. You really don't remember what Dr. Breary saw on child O? No, I cannot remember what every witness has said with every baby. No. I don't doubt that, but I'm going to suggest you do remember very well what Dr. Breary saw. I'll remind you of what he said. He said, I noted during the intubation that child O had a rash on his chest, on the right side of his chest wall, exactly 1 or 2 centimetres in size. I haven't said the size there, and he's referring to the note, but I mentioned it in my statement. It was an unusual rash. It initially appeared like a purpuric rash, so it was a little concerning and clearly noticeable. That, if anyone wants to check, is the evidence he gave on March 15th at page 29 of the transcript. He went on to say that the rash disappeared later on. Do you remember now that that was what he said? Yes. And that is what you saw as well, isn't it? No. Did you have to think about that? Yes. Do you agree that that's what was there? Again, I don't believe that's what I saw. I saw mottling, but if that's what Dr. Breary saw... If that's what Dr. Breary saw, what was at the end of that sentence, please? If that's what Dr. Breary saw, and that's what people take as being true, then yes. Do you remember Dr. Breary telling us that at this stage child O had a mild non-metabolic acidosis? Okay, yes. And that that was explicable by blood loss? Yes. Do you agree with that? I don't think as a nurse that I can comment on what has caused a blood level result. All right. Do you remember that when Dr. A had intubated child O, he went to see child O's parents on the maternity ward? Yes. And when Dr. A disappeared, child O declined again, didn't he? Yes. And at 15:49, he, Dr. A, and Dr. B were together on the stairs. Do you remember them saying they met on the stairs by chance? Yes. And the bleeps, their bleeps went off. Do you remember that? Yes. Just to remind us, please, Mr. Murphy, these are tiles 214 to 217. We can just scroll through the carousel, thank you. There's the entry of Dr. B back into the neonatal unit, okay? Yes. This was child O's final decline, wasn't it? Yes. Do you remember it happening? This specific moment where I've put out a crash call? Yes. No. Do you remember it? No. It was a very dramatic death, wasn't it? Yes, I remember his death. I don't remember this exact moment that he declined. Do you remember how you felt when this child, who had already collapsed twice, collapsed for a third time just after your friend had gone to see his parents? Yes, I was concerned for him, but you don't remember it? Not with any detail, no. I remember the death, but not this precise moment that he desaturated and needed a crash call, no. You remember this was another case of the doctors establishing good air entry into child O's lungs, and yet he was, that is child O, desaturating. Yes. He was intubated again. Do you remember that? Yes. He was given CPR and 2 doses of adrenaline. Do you remember that? Yes. And do you remember that his spontaneous circulation was restored? Yes. And the rash that had been there earlier had disappeared. Do you remember that? I don't recall the rash disappearing, no. You see, Dr. Breary and Dr. B both said that this sequence is something they had never seen before. Had you seen that sort of thing before? I didn't see what they saw. He had a red and distended abdomen. When did you pull the nasogastric tube out of child O's stomach? I don't recall pulling a tube out of his stomach. Let's look at tile 246, please. This was an X-ray taken to establish the position of the ET tube. Do you see that? Yes. It says ET tube in situ in satisfactory position. NG tube, so the nasogastric tube in situ with its tip close to the cardia, it says. Got that? Yes. It should be advanced, in other words, put in by 10 to 15 millimeters. Is that what it says? Yes. I showed you an X-ray report earlier that was taken at about the time of the second collapse, 1440. Yes. In which Dr. Wright reported that the NG tube was in a good position. Yes. In terms of a child with a distended abdomen who may have had air in his stomach, what effect would pulling the nasogastric tube back have? I believe it would still drain because it's still in the stomach. It's not in a good position, is it? No, it needs to be advanced, yes. Yes. To be effective, it needs to be further in. Do you agree? I don't know that the tube is not working at that position. I agree that it needs to be advanced, yes. In a child who's intubated, how would the NG tube come out? During the intubation, the taping that's on the baby's face securing the tube would need to be taken off to allow for the NG tube to be put in and secured, so potentially it slipped a little bit while that's being done. Did you take that as an opportunity to make sure that the tube wasn't draining Child O's stomach? No. All as part of your efforts to kill him? No. By pumping him with air. I'm going to ask you about descriptions given by the parents of child O, P and R, alright? And like many of the other parents' evidence, this evidence was agreed, alright? So I'm going to ask you whether you still agree it. Do you remember the mother of child O, P and R saying that child O was changing colour with discoloration and prominent veins, and that she saw something similar with her other son, child P, the next day? Do you agree with that description? I didn't see that. I didn't see that myself. The father of child O, child P, and child R. Do you remember the father of child O, P, and R? Yes. Do you remember his video? Yes. Played to the jury. What he said was this. You could see, talking of his son, all his veins, bright blue, going different colours. Looked like he had prickly heat. You could see something oozing through his veins. Do you agree with that? I didn't see anything like that, no. So we've got Dr. Breary with the disappearing rash, and the father of child O, P and R talking about a moving pattern of colour. Yes, that's the truth, isn't it? I can't comment on their truth. I did not see anything like that myself. What you saw was a sort of blotchy purpley red rash and a red abdomen. Yes. Do you remember you were asked by your counsel about the CPR that was given to child O? Yes. And do you remember what you said about it? No. You said it was done by others, but not by you. Okay. Do you remember? I don't remember, no. You don't remember saying that? Well, let's see what you said to the police, if we can. So the same interview that we had before. This is the very end of what we have of the interview on July 5th, 2018. The police asked you, okay, so CPR commenced at 16:19, medications, fluid given as documented. What was your role in his CPR? You said, I think I did some chest compressions, and I think I did some drugs, but I'd have to check. Right? Yes. What's changed your mind since that interview? I've been able to look at the charts to see that I was doing the medications. Yes. What's changed your mind about the CPR? Because if I was doing the medications at those times, I would not have been able to be carrying out the compressions. Well, why didn't you say that here then? Because at this point in interview, I didn't have any details of seeing what I had done during the resuscitation. You said, I think I did chest compressions and I think I did some drugs. Which is standard practice, yes. Yes. Nurses rotate, don't they, on these occasions? Yes. Particularly with prolonged resuscitations. Yes. Because it's important to keep the CPR going at the right rate. Yes. So it'd be... many staff would be involved, yes. Yes. I'm going to suggest a reason why you are now saying it wasn't you doing CPR. Because you don't want to have any connection between you and the liver injury, because you're now running a case that it was the CPR that caused the liver injury. No. You don't agree with that? No. Of course, when you gave this interview, this was well before Dr. Marnarides ever wrote a report, wasn't it? Yes. Yes. How did child O get that liver injury? I don't know. Do you accept the evidence of Dr. Marnarides? Yes. Because he also told us that child O didn't have any bowel disorder. Do you remember that? Yes. So no bowel disorder to account for all the gas in his bowel. Professor Arthurs told us that if a bowel disorder was excluded, we're left with air going down the NGT to account for the gas in the bowel. Do you accept that? If that's what he said, yes. That's why you made the false entry about CPAP, isn't it? No. To account for the gas. No. You injected Chaldo's stomach with gas down the NGT, didn't you? No, I did not. You injected air into his circulation, causing an air embolus. No. And you, through some violent mechanism, inflicted that liver injury on him, didn't you? No. These things happened on your watch, didn't they? Yes. Do you dispute that Dr. Breary tried to persuade you not to come in after Chaldo's death? Yes. Why did you want to come in after that? I didn't feel, if that's what Dr. Breary had offered, that I needed time off. Were you not bothered by what you'd witnessed? Of course I was bothered, yes. I would like to deal with a few texts that you sent in the aftermath of Chaldo's death, please, starting with tile 331. It might be better to do 330 actually, because you need to know what Dr. A said to deal with this. So this was at 21:13, an hour and 13 minutes after your shift had ended. He was sending you a message saying, "Your notes must have taken a long time. Had you documented anything from this morning?" And you responded, "Only a little. Had the other two to write on as well, and sorting out the FFP." Is that a blood transfusion? Yes, fresh frozen plasma. Fresh frozen plasma, etc. Left signing for drugs until tomorrow. Which drugs are you referring to as being signed the next day? I couldn't say definitively. I'm assuming any of the drugs that were given that afternoon. Are these all drugs that are, when they're signed, they are electronically stamped with a time signature by the computer? No, it could be computerized records, or it could be any paper drugs as well. I couldn't say which drugs exactly I'm referring to. So we're not going to be any the wiser by looking at the records, are we? No, because I'm not sure whether it means signing electronically or signing by hand on a paper form. Okay. The notes for child P as a matter of record, and we can come to this in due course if we go to tile 23 on the child P sequence, took you about 3 minutes to write between 2024 and 2027. We'll look at that in due course. I want to just move on though to tile 332, please. This is a conversation that you were having with Nurse E, who had asked you what had happened about a minute earlier. There she is, asking you what happened in graphic terms at tile 332. You replied, "Can't think straight, so took a while." And then the next one, please. "Blew up abdomen, think it's sepsis." Is that a phrase you use often? Blew up abdomen? No. How many cases of blew up abdomen have you seen? I've seen a few over my time. I'm going to suggest that you are also telling your friend Nurse E lies in these texts, okay? So if we go to tile 342, please. Would you just read that, please? Had big tummy overnight, but just ballooned after lunch and went from there. That wasn't really an accurate statement of what had been happening with child O the night before he died, was it? I believe he had had an enlarged abdomen overnight. This is one of the reasons why at the beginning we went through what had happened on the night shift. Yes. There was nothing wrong with him when you took him over in the morning, was there? He'd just been reviewed by the doctor for having a loopy bowel. Yes, but that's not big tummy overnight, is it? I disagree. I think I am referring to some distension that was there prior to me taking over at 8 o'clock. Then tile 403, please. It begins with Nurse E saying, "We don't have any luck with 33-34 weekers." You agree, and you may remember the police asked you questions about that in interview. And the conversation goes on with Nurse E saying, "Hope other two have an easy ride now for the parents' sake." That's a reference to the other two triplets, isn't it? Yes. And you say, "Yeah, worry, she's missed something." Then you say, "Home at last," that's to Dr. A at tile 401. To Nurse E you say, "Fingers crossed," and then "worry" as identical. So this is a text that you are sending at the same time or within the same minute as the text you were sending to Dr. A saying that you just got home. Yes. Were you setting up a false narrative here? Do you understand what I mean by that? Yes, and no, I wasn't. No. You were trying to create in the minds of other people that because child O had died of some unspecified problem, there was a likelihood that the same thing was going to happen to one of his siblings. No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. Because that's what you were planning, wasn't it? No, it was not. And you had already put into motion your plan by pumping air into child P before you left. No. Do you remember the datix form that you put in relating to child O's death? Yes, I think there was something in relation to equipment, was there? Well, we'll come to this, all right? I'm trying to deal with things chronologically. We will come to a text that you had stored on your phone that was never actually sent. It was in effect a note to yourself. Do you remember? Yes. It was on a date right at the end of June, reminding yourself to put in datix forms. Do you remember that? Yes. One of those datix forms was the datix form that you put in for child O. Do you remember? Okay. We'll just look at it, please. It's tile 497. So what we see is that on the 29th of June 2016, at 08:36, this form was submitted. Yes. And I think you've already told us that you go into the child's records, there is a drop-down menu, you can select a datix form, which then gives you various options that you fill in as you go along. Is that right? Yes, you'd open up the datix sort of app and it would produce you with this, with drop-down pieces throughout, yes. So you fill in the child's details, is that right? No, that I believe comes from the system. Okay, so clinical incident is what you are suggesting, is that right? Have I filled in this form? Well, okay, we'll establish that first. Can we just scroll down? There we are. So employees involved. Yes, the incident reporter though was Arian Powell. I see. Arian Powell, of course, wasn't on duty on this shift, was she? No, she wasn't. So where would she have got the information from? From any of the notes that were available, medical and nursing notes, word of mouth. Word of mouth? Well, the deaths would be discussed, yes. This was one of the things on your note to self-submit, wasn't it? A datix, yes, yes. So you had a hand in this, didn't you? Not in this datix, no. I believe it was about equipment I was filling in the datix for. Do you remember Dr. Breary telling us that the information in this datix is untrue? In this one here? Yes. Yes. Do you remember what the untrue statement in the datix is? He didn't believe at any point that IV access was lost. Yes, exactly. So Arian Powell, if what you're saying is right, is making a report of an incident at which she was not present. Yes, because she's the ward manager. Yes. I'm suggesting to you that you, in effect, were giving her the information. And that's why your name features as the employee involved. No, the employee involved would always be the designated nurse. So yes, it was me. Yes. If we scroll down, please, to what's actually being reported, it should have situation. One of the spontaneous triplets born died suddenly and unexpectedly. Then it says incident reporter. You found it, thank you. So there we have triplet 2 born, and it gives his details. Is that right so far? Yes. On the 23rd of June at 13:15, he vomited undigested milk, became tachycardic. So that's taken directly from your nursing notes, isn't it? Yes. You were the one who said he was tachycardic. He was reviewed by the registrar, septic screen, 1440 profound desaturation, followed by bradycardia. Transferred to nursery 1, put on neopuff. Doctors crash called at 15:51. This is Dr. B and Dr. A, is that right? Yes. Due to further desaturations, down to 30. Chest movement and air entry. We've just dealt with all that. Responded to treatment, back onto the ventilator, 17:15 baptized. CPR following further desaturation. 6 doses of adrenaline and other drugs. Decision made to stop. Childo passed away at 17:47. Right so far? Yes. Is that how you remember it? I don't recall writing this, no. I don't think I filled it in. Okay, let's keep going if we can. Scroll down, further again please. That's all behind the scenes information, is that right? Yes. Down again, a meeting, an instant review group, is that right? Yes. If we scroll down, please. So, infant had a sudden acute collapse requiring resuscitation. Peripheral access lost. IO access required. Resources not available. Right? Yes. Do you remember this? Do you remember completing this? Oh, no, this isn't me completing this, but no. I know I put the form in, yes, because we didn't have the IO access on the unit. Okay, let's just carry on, please. The patient details are child O's details, yes? Yes. You are the instant reporter on this, yes. Then a report further down, please. So, infant had sudden acute collapse requiring resuscitation. Peripheral access lost. That was not true, was it? I think at the time, yes it was. No. Dr. Breary has told us it was not true. Okay, that's Dr. Breary's opinion. Well, it is Dr. Breary's opinion, you're quite right. But it's also what's in the medical records. How child O was being given some of the resuscitation drugs was through the peripheral access that was not lost. Do you agree? Yes. Thank you. Incident investigation, reviewed on July 25th. Patient did not lose peripheral access. IO access required for blood samples only. I accept that, and the form was written with regards of we did not have that equipment on the unit. No. But you understand the allegation here, or part of the allegation, is that you injected air into child O's circulation, don't you? Yes. If there was no peripheral access, that would not be possible, would it? No. And that is the reason you are suggesting that when this child had his fatal collapse, he did not have peripheral access. That's not what I was suggesting. I'm saying it was lost during resuscitation. That wasn't true, was it? Why were you making an untrue statement in a datix form? I don't believe it was untrue at the time. Is it just a coincidence that you were making this report at pretty much the time that you were being removed from the unit? I hadn't been removed from the unit at this point. When did you leave the unit, as you remember it? Sometime in July. Right at the beginning of July. Okay. You were very worried that they were onto you, weren't you? No. Well, we'll come to the texts. Do you remember those panicked texts you were sending to Dr. A because Arian Powell had phoned you up at short notice to cancel you coming in for a shift? Yvonne Griffiths, yes. So you do remember? Yes. And you were very worried they were onto you, weren't you? No, I was worried what was happening, yes.
Okay. So that concludes the information concerning child O. Just a quick thank you to Kaz49 for the £1.99 super sticker. Greatly appreciated. And to the moderators this evening, Lenny Russell and Terence Stamper, and to all of those who have attended. Let me just scroll back, make sure I haven't missed anything before we leave this evening. Kelly, thank you for joining us. Who else have we got here? Music Tourette's 22, welcome to you, and thanks for joining us. Ali M, thanks for joining us. And as I say, excuse me, as I say, tomorrow will most likely be the case of child P, but I'll put further details up regarding that tomorrow when possible. But as I say, thank you so much to each and every one of you for tuning in this evening. Oh, Essex True Crime has slid in through the back door there. Welcome to you. Thank you for joining us at such late notice. I also plan on doing an Essex Boys live stream as well, possibly early part of next week, but I'll give you some further details regarding that when I know exactly what's taking place. But anyway, thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining me this evening. As I say, and as I've said in previous streams, it's great to see so many constant viewers, continual viewers of this particular live stream each and every night. Thank you so much for your attendance, as always. And I'll leave you, as always, with the outro video. And I'll see you tomorrow around the same time, sort of 7:30, I'd imagine it'll be tomorrow. The normal sort of midday time, or midweek time, or early week time, we should say. That's not, not a Saturday or a Sunday. we'll be back to the normal timing of 7:30. So I'll see you all tomorrow at 7:30. Thanks again for your support and for the moderators' work, Lenny Russell and who else is it there? Terence Stamper. And I'll see you all again tomorrow at 7:30. Goodbye for now and have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.